The notification came at 3:47 a.m. Singapore time. Marcus Chen's phone buzzed against the mahogany nightstand, the blue glow cutting through the darkness of his penthouse bedroom. He reached for it with trembling fingers, already knowing what he would find. The blockchain explorer showed it clearly in cold, unforgiving numbers. $847 million had vanished from the HyperFi protocol in a single transaction. Marcus sat up in bed, his heart hammering against his ribs. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he stared at the screen. This wasn't just another hack. This was the complete destruction of everything he had built over the past 3 years. HyperFi was supposed to be the future of decentralized finance, a revolutionary protocol that would democratize global lending. Instead, it had become the largest theft in cryptocurrency history. The transaction hash glowed on his screen like an accusation. Someone had drained every cent from the protocol's treasury, the insurance fund, and even the emergency reserves. But how? The smart contracts had been audited by 3 different firms. The security was military-grade. The multi-signature wallets required 5 out of 7 board members to approve any major transaction. Marcus's phone exploded with incoming calls. His chief technology officer, the head of security, investors, journalists. Each ring felt like a nail being driven into a coffin. He let them all go to voicemail as he pulled up the transaction details on his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard with desperate urgency. The theft had originated from the protocol's main treasury wallet. But that was impossible. That wallet was secured by hardware devices distributed across 4 continents, each held by a different board member. To access those funds, an attacker would need physical possession of at least 5 devices, along with the individual PIN codes that only each board member knew. As Marcus dug deeper into the blockchain data, his blood turned to ice. The transaction hadn't been executed by an external hacker. It had been authorized by the protocol's own governance system. Someone with legitimate access had systematically looted everything, leaving behind only empty wallets and shattered dreams. But that was only the beginning of Marcus's nightmare. By dawn, the crypto world was in chaos. Social media exploded with accusations and theories. The price of HyperFi's native token, Hyper, had crashed to zero within minutes of the news breaking. Telegram groups that had once celebrated the protocol's innovations were now filled with rage and despair. Thousands of users who had trusted their life savings to HyperFi faced complete financial ruin. Marcus found himself at the center of a global manhunt before breakfast. Law enforcement agencies from Singapore, the United States, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom were already coordinating efforts. The theft was so massive that it had caught the attention of Interpol. Financial regulators who had previously ignored DeFi were suddenly taking a very personal interest in the space. The first break in the case came from an unlikely source. Elena Volkov, a forensic accountant from Estonia, had been tracking suspicious activity across multiple DeFi protocols for months. She had noticed strange patterns in HyperFi's governance votes, tiny anomalies that most people would dismiss as statistical noise. But Elena specialized in finding needles in digital haystacks. She called Marcus directly, bypassing his overwhelmed legal team. Her voice was calm and clinical, a stark contrast to the hysteria surrounding him. She had discovered something that would turn the investigation on its head. The theft hadn't been executed by a single mastermind. It was the culmination of a sophisticated operation involving multiple actors across 4 countries, each playing a specific role in what she called the most complex financial crime in human history. Elena's investigation revealed that the attackers had been infiltrating HyperFi for over 18 months. They hadn't broken into the system through technical exploits or social engineering. Instead, they had systematically compromised the governance process itself, manipulating votes and proposals to gradually expand their access and authority within the protocol. The scheme began in Latvia, where a seemingly legitimate DeFi investment fund had been accumulating Hyper tokens since the protocol's early days. The fund, called Baltic Digital Assets, had positioned itself as a major supporter of HyperFi's mission. Its representatives frequently participated in governance discussions, proposing thoughtful improvements and security upgrades that earned them respect from the community. But Baltic Digital Assets was a facade. Behind the professional website and regulatory registrations was a network of individuals connected to organized crime syndicates operating across Eastern Europe. They had studied HyperFi's governance mechanisms for months, identifying vulnerabilities that had nothing to do with code and everything to do with human psychology. What happened next shocked the entire crypto world. Elena's investigation revealed that the criminals hadn't just stolen the money. They had orchestrated a complex series of trades and transfers designed to crash the entire DeFi ecosystem. The theft of $847 million was just the opening move in a much larger game. The stolen funds had been immediately routed through a sophisticated money laundering operation spanning 12 countries. Privacy coins, decentralized exchanges, and mixing services were used to obscure the trail. But the criminals made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated the determination of the global crypto community to track them down. Marcus received a call that changed everything. The voice on the other end belonged to David Kim, a former NSA cryptographer who now worked for a private blockchain analytics firm. David had been following the money trail independently using advanced clustering algorithms to map the flow of stolen funds. What he discovered was breathtaking in its audacity. The criminals hadn't just stolen from HyperFi. They had been systematically attacking multiple DeFi protocols over the past year, each theft more sophisticated than the last. HyperFi was meant to be their masterpiece, the score that would allow them to retire with enough money to buy small countries. David's analysis revealed that approximately 60% of the stolen funds had already been converted to fiat currency and moved into traditional banking systems. The criminals had partnerships with corrupt financial institutions in 3 different jurisdictions, allowing them to launder hundreds of millions of dollars without triggering standard anti-money laundering protocols. But the remaining 40% of the funds were still in cryptocurrency, sitting in wallets that the criminals believed were untraceable. David had other ideas. Working with law enforcement agencies and other blockchain analysts, he began a digital siege that would make headlines around the world. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of the criminals had made a fatal error, sending a small amount of stolen cryptocurrency to an exchange account that was connected to their real identity. Within hours, investigators had identified Dmitry Kozlov, a 34-year-old software engineer from Riga who had been living far beyond his apparent means for the past 2 years. Kozlov's arrest in Latvia sent shockwaves through the criminal network. Under interrogation, he revealed details that painted a picture of an operation more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. The group included hackers, financial experts, legal advisors, and even former government officials who provided intelligence about regulatory blind spots. The investigation expanded rapidly. Simultaneous raids in 6 countries netted 12 additional suspects, including the mysterious figure known only as the architect who had designed the entire scheme. But recovering the stolen funds proved to be an entirely different challenge. The criminals had anticipated eventual detection. They had built kill switches into their money laundering network, automated systems that would destroy evidence and scatter remaining funds if triggered. When Kozlov was arrested, those systems activated, sending the investigation into overdrive. Marcus found himself working closely with an international task force that included representatives from Europol, the FBI, the Singapore police force, and blockchain analytics firms from around the world. The race was on to recover as much of the stolen money as possible before it disappeared forever into the shadow economy. The task force faced a unique challenge. Traditional financial crimes left paper trails that investigators could follow through banks and financial institutions. But cryptocurrency moved through a parallel universe of digital wallets and decentralized systems that operated outside normal regulatory frameworks. Recovering the funds required new techniques and unprecedented cooperation between law enforcement and the crypto industry. Elena Volkov emerged as a key figure in the recovery effort. Her background in both traditional forensic accounting and blockchain analysis made her uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between old-school investigation techniques and cutting-edge digital forensics. She developed new methodologies for tracking funds through complex mixing services and privacy protocols. The first major recovery came 3 weeks after the initial theft. Elena's team had identified a wallet containing $45 million worth of stolen cryptocurrency. The wallet belonged to an exchange in Cyprus that had been unknowingly processing transactions for the criminal network. Working with Cypriot authorities, the task force managed to freeze the account and seize the funds. But the criminals were fighting back. They launched a series of cyber attacks against the blockchain analytics firms helping with the investigation. They doxed investigators, publishing personal information and threatening family members. They even attempted to bribe key witnesses and corrupt evidence. The investigation took a dramatic turn when investigators discovered that one of HyperFi's own board members had been compromised. Sarah Williams, the protocol's chief legal officer, had been secretly providing information to the criminal network for over a year. She had used her position to manipulate governance votes and provide insider knowledge about security measures. Williams' betrayal cut deep. She had been one of Hyperfi's most trusted advocates, a Harvard-educated lawyer who had helped design the protocol's governance structure. Her involvement suggested that the criminals had infiltrated Hyperfi at the highest levels, raising questions about how many other insiders might be involved. The revelation about Williams triggered a global audit of DeFi protocols. Investors fled the space en masse, causing a market crash that wiped out hundreds of billions in value. Regulatory authorities that had previously taken a hands-off approach to DeFi began proposing strict new oversight requirements. The entire ecosystem that Marcus had helped build was crumbling around him. But Marcus refused to give up. Working with the International Task Force, he helped develop new security protocols that would make similar attacks nearly impossible. He testified before regulatory committees, explaining how the criminals had exploited gaps in existing oversight frameworks. He became an unlikely advocate for reasonable regulation, arguing that proper oversight would protect both investors and innovation. The investigation entered its most dangerous phase when the task force identified the location of the architect. Viktor Petrov was a former Russian intelligence officer who had disappeared from Moscow 3 years earlier after being accused of embezzling government funds. He had established a new identity in Dubai, using his intelligence training to build the criminal network that targeted DeFi protocols. Petrov was not going to be captured easily. He had anticipated that law enforcement would eventually close in, and he had prepared accordingly. When Dubai police arrived at his luxury apartment, they found it empty except for a single laptop displaying a countdown timer. The architect had vanished, but he had left behind a final surprise. The laptop contained evidence of Petrov's entire operation, including detailed records of every theft, every money laundering transaction, and every corrupted insider. But it also contained something else, the locations of wallet files containing over $200 million in stolen cryptocurrency. Petrov had apparently decided that if he couldn't keep the money, he wouldn't let his accomplices have it either. The wallet files were encrypted with military-grade algorithms, but they came with a challenge. Petrov had hidden the decryption keys in a series of puzzles embedded in blockchain transactions across multiple networks. He was essentially daring the global crypto community to solve his riddles and recover the funds. What followed was one of the most remarkable collaborative efforts in internet history. Cryptographers, mathematicians, puzzle enthusiasts, and blockchain developers from around the world united to crack Petrov's codes. Online forums buzzed with activity as thousands of people worked together to solve each clue. The first puzzle was solved within 48 hours, revealing the location of a wallet containing $12 million. The second took a week, but netted $35 million. Each solved puzzle built momentum, attracting more participants to the global treasure hunt. The crypto community had transformed a criminal's final taunt into a crowdsourced investigation. Marcus watched in amazement as the recovery effort took on a life of its own. People who had lost money in the Hyperfi collapse were working alongside cryptocurrency developers, law enforcement officers, and academic researchers. The shared goal of justice had created unprecedented cooperation across traditional boundaries. The final puzzle proved to be the most challenging. It required solving a complex mathematical equation that referenced obscure details from Hyperfi's original white paper. The solution took 3 weeks, and the combined efforts of cryptographers from MIT, Cambridge, and the Ethereum Foundation. When the last wallet was finally unlocked, the global crypto community erupted in celebration. In total, the recovery effort had reclaimed over $480 million of the stolen funds. It was an unprecedented success in cryptocurrency law enforcement, proving that the blockchain's transparency could be a powerful tool for justice when wielded by determined investigators. The recovered funds were distributed back to affected users through a complex legal process that took months to complete. Marcus personally oversaw the distribution, ensuring that small retail investors received priority over large institutional players. He refused to take any compensation for his role in the recovery effort, despite having lost his own substantial holdings in the collapse. The criminals faced justice across multiple jurisdictions. Dmitry Kozlov received a 15-year sentence in Latvia. Sarah Williams was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison in the United States. 12 other accomplices received sentences ranging from 5 to 25 years. Only Viktor Petrov remained at large, having vanished into the shadows of the international fugitive underground. But the impact of the HyperFi collapse extended far beyond the courtroom. The incident became a watershed moment for the cryptocurrency industry, forcing a reckoning with security practices and governance structures that had been built on assumptions of good faith participation. Marcus emerged from the ordeal as an unlikely leader in the movement for responsible DeFi development. He helped establish new industry standards for protocol security and governance transparency. He worked with regulators to develop frameworks that would protect investors without stifling innovation. He became living proof that the crypto industry could police itself when faced with existential threats. The HyperFi protocol itself was eventually relaunched with enhanced security measures and a new governance structure designed to prevent insider manipulation. The new version included real-time monitoring systems, mandatory security audits, and distributed governance mechanisms that made it virtually impossible for any single entity to gain controlling influence. 3 years after the collapse, the recovered HyperFi had become one of the most secure and trusted protocols in DeFi. The lessons learned from the criminal attack had made it stronger, more resilient, and more worthy of the trust that users placed in it. Marcus often reflected on the irony that the criminals who tried to destroy his life's work had ultimately helped him build something better. The International Task Force's success in recovering the stolen funds had also revolutionized cryptocurrency law enforcement. The techniques developed during the investigation became standard tools for tracking criminal activity on blockchain networks. The cooperation between traditional law enforcement and the crypto community established new precedents for fighting financial crime in the digital age. Elena Volkov founded a new firm specializing in cryptocurrency forensics, helping law enforcement agencies around the world investigate blockchain-based crimes. Her methodologies were adopted by major financial institutions seeking to comply with anti-money laundering requirements in the digital asset space. David Kim's blockchain analytics company became a key partner for exchanges and DeFi protocols seeking to prevent money laundering and sanctions evasion. The algorithms he developed during the HyperFi investigation were refined and deployed across the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem. The case even influenced popular culture, inspiring documentaries, books, and even a major motion picture about the largest cryptocurrency theft in history and the global effort to bring the criminals to justice. The story became a symbol of both the vulnerabilities and the resilience of decentralized financial systems. Marcus never forgot the lessons of those dark months when his world collapsed around him. He established a foundation dedicated to educating cryptocurrency users about security best practices and supporting victims of financial crimes. He regularly spoke at conferences about the importance of responsible innovation and the need for strong governance in decentralized systems. The HyperFi case also led to significant changes in how governments approached cryptocurrency regulation. Instead of attempting to ban or severely restrict digital assets, many jurisdictions opted for pragmatic frameworks that acknowledged both the benefits and risks of decentralized finance. The collaborative investigation had demonstrated that effective law enforcement was possible within existing legal structures. Years later, as Marcus stood before a packed auditorium delivering a keynote address about the future of DeFi, he often thought about the night when everything changed. The devastating hack that had threatened to destroy his life had ultimately led to innovations that made the entire ecosystem safer and more resilient. The story of HyperFi became required reading for anyone entering the cryptocurrency space. It served as both a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked innovation and an inspiring example of how a global community could unite to overcome seemingly impossible challenges. Viktor Petrov was eventually captured in a joint operation between Interpol and local authorities in Montenegro. He had been living under a false identity, running a small tech consulting business while slowly moving the last of his hidden funds. His arrest closed the final chapter of the HyperFi case, though the impact of the investigation continued to ripple through the cryptocurrency world. The rug pull that had taken 4 countries to trace became more than just a criminal case. It became a defining moment that shaped the future of decentralized finance, proving that even in a trustless system, human cooperation and determination could triumph over criminal cunning and technological sophistication. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe to FictionWire Crypto. This is a fictional story created purely for entertainment.